On today's wrestling news, WWE changes plans after an outcry.
A revelation on two top WWE stars who did not get along.
We've got updates on All In Texas.
And additionally, we have an update on the health condition of Vince McMahon.
I'm Phil Chambers.
I'm Michael Sidgwick.
And this is the news. But first up, WWE, there was a bit of an outcry about something, potential plans for the Judgment Day. Now this was coming from WrestleVotes. They tweeted out a few days ago just saying that plans are in motion to rebrand the new Judgment Day. Sources say the group's name, the group's essence will stay the same, but a name change is likely, and the leading candidate is Street Trash.
Street Trash.
Street Trash. So obviously, well, online people weren't fans, let's say, and it seems like they're changing tack ever so slightly. They're keeping it in there, but they're just changing gears. And so WrestleVotes have an update on it as well, just saying, follow up on this. Looks like they heard the outcry. Sources claim the name Judgment Day will remain. However, the slogan Street Trash will be incorporated within the group's gimmick. So it looks like they're gonna go with a, Judgment Day 2 Electric Boogaloo thing. Judgment Day 2 Street Trash.
Street Trash.
WrestleVotes also mentioned that the Street Trash idea came directly from Finn Balor, and merchandising concepts have already been completed and approved. So they kind of had to go with something to do with Street Trash because they'd already put in all the work.
That's the thing. It'd be wasting money if they didn't do it now. At least sell some, flog some t-shirts off it. Yeah, I was one of the ones who read the report from WrestleVotes last week, was it? Earlier this week, whenever it was. And just thought, well, that's pretty abysmal. I mean, that is pretty abysmal. And now I feel bad because you never want to form a parasocial relationship with a professional wrestler, but by all accounts and all indications and all reports, Finn Balor really is one of the good ones.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's his idea, it's his baby. I was like, oh, sorry. Sorry. To be fair, though, this is a guy who was extremely intelligent the way that he marketed himself. He had that alter ego of the demon that allowed him to be a very potentially toyetic figure in WWE's main roster. He knew how to get over as a heel, drawing earnest heat, which is so difficult in the 21st century in New Japan. So
very early days of Bullet Club as well, one of the biggest merchandise movers in the history of the sport.
Indeed, he's an exceptionally clever bloke within pro wrestling. So everyone's due a bad idea, him more than most. But, it was pretty bad, and clearly they are aware of it. Now, speaking on the subject of bad ideas, if you are a pro wrestler in WWE, sports entertainer, however you want to put it, it's probably not the most optimal idea to bury, criticise, otherwise banter off the biggest star in the promotion. And that is essentially what Matt Riddle did, speaking in various interviews. Everyone would always interview him knowing, I can get a quote out of this, I can get some clicks out of this, because he's probably going to say something that will in some way doom his career. Now, he did say something to the effect, this is like when he was actually within WWE, which makes it 1,000 times worse, that he could beat up Roman Reigns in a real fight. Now, Matt Kump, almost a terrible slip of the tongue there. I almost said the C word. Matt Camp, former host of The Bump, hence why that happened, has revealed on his podcast, which is a really engaging listen, incidentally, that Roman Reigns obviously was not the biggest fan of Riddle, and when they had to set up an edition of the program with both men on it, they made absolutely certain that they were not even present between mediums, if that makes any sense. They weren't physically present in the building. That wasn't quite enough. They wanted to make sure there can be no interaction whatsoever. So I believe that Riddle was actually in the studio. Roman was appearing on the show via satellite, and that only switched on when he was out. They only switched the satellite on when Riddle had left the old building. So, I mean, he had a lot going for him. There are obviously way more significant reasons why he's not there, and those are infinitely more important, but there were other ways in which he just completely got in his way. The Goldberg stuff.
Making friends and influencing people.
Doing the absolutely.
Seth
Saying he could kick people's ass, upsetting Seth Rollins.
Calling Brock Lesnar out in a fight.
Yeah, he had an issue with Brock Lesnar. He said Goldberg was terrible at wrestling, and then he said he could beat up Roman Reigns in a fight, which is, he's a legitimate, skilled former MMA fighter. It's true, but you don't say it. There are a lot of things that are true, and it's probably the case in everyone's plate. You just shut your mouth. But, probably good that he opened it because he probably doesn't deserve it.
This is very true. Yeah, a long, storied history of, picking stupid fights with people with a lot of influence behind the scenes.
Could he have picked anybody stupider? Could he have picked could he made any dumber decisions to go for? You've got Lesnar, Goldberg, Roman, and even Seth has a lot of sway. Why don't you just say that Cena can't do a STF while you're at it?
Just go through just go straight to Vince and things and trips, why not?
Let's say Triple H. Just say, Cena couldn't do an STF to save his life. Triple H couldn't get anyone to make noise at WrestleMania to save his life. Why don't you just do it all?
Who knew? It's not like there wasn't any signs before he went to WWE.
Yeah,
this might happen, but whatever. Anyway, speaking of nicer news, AEW had a massive announcement last night announcing that they are doing All In 4 technically, but the third AEW branded All In Texas next year. Fightful Select have a bit of an update surrounding this, with just a little bit of backstage information about why this is happening. So, where is it? It's going to be happening in Globe Life Field in Dallas, to get that out of the way. But they have apparently announced it before All In this year to avoid unrealistic expectations of an announcement similar to last year, when kind of right at the end of the show it was, we're coming back next year!
I was like, are you sure?
It's like,
this is great, but are you sure?
So they're getting rid of all the unrealistic expectations of another All In London next year by announcing it ahead of time, which makes a lot of sense. It's also part of the wider deal between AEW and Dallas. They've negotiated with them to get the residency for Collision and Ring of Honor over there, and this is kind of part of a sort of larger package between the two. It hadn't been finalized when the initial rumors started coming out earlier this year, but Tony Khan has said before that he wanted to run this stadium because the Texas Rangers are a client of Tony Khan's analytics company. So it's all business synergy stuff, it all kind of works in together. And the talent that they had at the announcement in Dallas had no idea what they were doing there. They didn't tell any of the talent backstage in AEW to try and keep this under wraps until they were ready for the announcement. And even when they were shipping the talent over to Texas, they had no idea what they were going for and were only clued up on the day. So that's quite fun. So yeah, All In Texas, 40,000 seats in the Globe Life Field. It's a big ask, but I mean, the whole spirit of All In to just throw something out there and then figure out how you're going to make it happen.
I think it's like one of my favourite events just on that basis. Why not dream big? Why not try and make it as big as possible? Got a few thoughts on this. Most of them very, very, very positive. Now, the big old elephant in the room is the fact that if you look at WrestleTix, who does amazing work, and Dave does this in The Observer as well, if you look at the gates, upcoming domestic wise, they're not good. They're genuinely quite alarming at this point. It's been a trend that is just becoming, dare I say it, inexorable at this point. So that is a bit of a worry in terms of how much they might be able to draw at a stadium. They have to go really big with a promotion. They have to treat it like their WrestleMania. They have to put on the biggest matches possible. But on that, the fact that it's happening in mid-July as opposed to late August means that they are going to avoid, and probably should have done it this year if it was even remotely possible, the idea that a lot of All In basically acts as the road to All Out. They've managed it a lot better, I think, this year.
Loads better than last year.
Putting Kenny Omega in an undercard trios match was just a joke, and I continue to stand by that. But they have managed it a lot better this year, so they are removing that problem from the equation. Another thing is that we talk about this year and how it's obviously, objectively a decline in terms of numbers from last year. Drawing in excess, which probably is how it's all projected right now, drawing in excess of 50,000 fans is an absolutely stunningly remarkable achievement, no matter if you might see some red dots on the broadcast. Drawing 50,000 is a huge financial and optics success. However, I think that they've realised, if they look at the data that they've already gathered over the past sort of year, maybe even 18 months to years, is that when they make repeated visits to different markets, like Chicago is the obvious example, they just diminish and diminish and diminish and diminish, and it's getting really sobering, this trend. Going back to Wembley, I think, even though 50,000 is a remarkable number, if you go back a third time, if you look at the markets that they keep going back to and how that attendance keeps lowering, there's every possibility, and I'm not being cynical here, this is trends and data and patterns that they do 25, 30 next year. So now is the time for the move. And I think, provided they promote this as effectively as possible, I think it's a wonderful move. It's got a retractable roof, the stadium, so it's like an all-weather kind of deal. There's no risk in doing it. And if you go back to like the lore of Dynamite, 2019 they hit Texas for a lot of early tapings and those crowds were raucous. A similar thing happened in 2021 when they were able to resume live touring. I think a lot of AEW fans like really cherish those Texas TV crowds. Like in all the different individual cities, there's been great ones in sort of like Dallas and El Paso and Austin. Like all of them have like produced these really energetic pro wrestling fans. So they're part of AEW's lore, and there's been a long like sort of campaign of, come on, we're the loudest, give us a pay-per-view, give us a pay-per-view. And it's like, well, you want a pay-per-view, you've got the biggest one. So yeah, UK Arena Tour next year though, I think that's the next move.
Yeah, definitely. I like this Texas move though. It's like big sports town as well, like in terms of like having the sort of infrastructure to be able to handle these things. But it's going to be the biggest American show since what's the Arthur Ashe, the first Arthur Ashe that they did.
Yeah.
And like obviously.
Well, you hope it's the biggest one.
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah, do 20,000 for that.
But like this year's Arthur Ashe, struggling compared to what it was. So they've got a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of work to do.
But they've got a year to do it.
Yeah.
And so in terms of having a goal of, right, we need to turn this around by here.
It's good.
And if we don't, then we're screwed.
I mean, it's a good sort of like...
It's a good motivator.
It's a good motivator. They're putting their backs against the wall. They're betting on themselves, which is the entire theme of All In. Long may that continue. And I'm broadly in favour of it, even though... I don't know if it's bold, a pipe dream, even if those are euphemisms, but we shall see. We shall see. Just do the work, and hopefully the results will come. Lastly today, we have an update on a story that sort of broke and materialised yesterday, and that Linda McMahon had spoken to people saying that, her husband... health wasn't particularly great. In fact, it was, I think the exact quote, or I'll say I'm paraphrasing just in case I've got the adjective wrong, was rapidly deteriorating or declining. Now, Vince McMahon's lawyer, 2 seconds, Jessica Rosenberg, gotta check my notes, has responded to a request from Post Wrestling and WrestleNomics to see what's going on there, and she has flatly denied that his health is in any sort of bad condition. Who knows what to believe? Someone is not telling the truth, either Vince McMahon's lawyer or his wife at the time, his wife, so who knows? Phil, what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, I've no idea.
It's just impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, when you've got just two completely opposing ideas of the same thing coming from two very different
How the hell are you
sources.
meant to know without ever running into Vince McMahon?
Exactly, and
who would want to do that?
And there's not even like a track record of believability there or anything like that. Like, you wonder why would the lawyer be lying about it? What do they have to gain?
Yeah, exactly.
But then at the same time, what does Linda have to gain from this? I don't know. Whatever it is, I guess more information will come out at some point and we will let you know. But yeah, until then.
It's
all wild speculation from our part.
Yeah, until then, just watch another video.
Yeah, and you can do that right here.
Subscribe as well. Bye.